You'll find a link in the chat that provides a site that you can go to, use your zip code, and then find out, if you don't already know, whose ancestral lands you're living on. We are offering Spanish translation today. You'll find some information coming up shortly in the chat so that if you require Spanish translation, you may access it. I would like to welcome you and begin with a land acknowledgement. Welcome for our final session in God's Gift of Money. The churchwide office of Women of the ELCA is located on the original and ancestral lands of the Kickapoo, Peoria, Potawatomi, Miami, Ho-Chunk, and Sioux people. We give thanks for these tribal nations, and we acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of the various regions represented by those gathered here. We recognize and honor all Indigenous siblings, supporting the resilience and strength they have shown worldwide. So our host and presenter today is Jenny Norris Peterson. We're excited to hear the messages that she has in our final section of this series, where today we look at ways to make gifts in the here and now. Last week, if they were gifts that are part of your estate planning, and then these now will be here and now gifts. We're going to spend some time with that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Katie's Fund and our special campaign. Of course, this whole series has been a component of our campaign. And we will hear from a couple of women who are supporting the campaign and talk about ways that you could make a gift to the campaign. And then at the end, Jenny will kind of wrap up everything for us, all 5 sessions. So I think we are ready to begin. Welcome, everyone.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to be with you today. Thanks for being a part of this program. This is session 5, our concluding session of God's Gift of Money, Stewarding Money Wisely. And what we'll be focusing on today is philanthropic possibilities, ways to give right now. You'll remember that just last Saturday, we were hearing from Brenda Moore a lot about legacy giving possibilities. And so today we're showing the other side of that giving spectrum, talking about gifts that can be given right away. It's always good to think about why we give. And I love this verse from Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it, the world and those who live in it. And I thought I'd just highlight a few things that are always in the back of my mind about why we give. First and foremost, it's an expression of our faith. It's saying, yes, God, we know that you have given us everything that we have, not only what we know we have, but even things we're not even remembering or focusing on right now. Absolutely everything is a gift from you. And so as we think about our giving, it is expressing that ultimate faith in God. It's also a way of living out our gratitude, because we have been blessed with such abundance, even in times when money is tight. Many of us have a home to live in, family and friends to lean on. We generally have food to eat. The blessings are just countless. And sometimes we go through periods where we're astonished by the abundance. Maybe there's extra money that we're able to use for travel or to pursue some sort of dream that we always hoped we'd be able to do. So being able to give to God is a way of expressing gratitude for this incredible abundance that flows to us. Sometimes faster than at other times, but there always is that sense of abundance. What I've wanted to express through this series is that through our giving, we as women claim our power. we in the United States have astonishing financial resources, way beyond that of many people around the world. And so it's important that we understand better what we own in our own name so that we can be the very best stewards of that financial resource and be able to use that financial resource to strengthen our church and bring about good in the world. But for us to understand more about our financial situation, it then gives us the latitude to exert the financial power that our financial resources give us. It's actually very exciting to be able to use that power in positive ways when we align our faith and our values with our financial resources. And finally, feel the joy. Giving is fun. I worked for many years as a philanthropic advisor for Lutheran not-for-profits. And I've visited with hundreds of donors in their homes or sometimes their offices. And I can't tell you the number of times that generous donors told me how much fun they have with their giving. I know I sense that in my own life, in my own giving, but I think the more generous we are, the more joy flows out of us from being able to share that abundance. It's such a blessing that God has given us to say, here is an abundance, now give some back for me, for God's ministry in the world. And then after that, use the rest of it for saving and spending, for after what comes after the giving. So have fun with this. And what I wanted to get across in today's session is an invitation to stretch in your current giving. And how might that be possible? One of the ways, and we talked about this in the very first session of this webinar series, is tithing. And here's a wonderful verse from Leviticus in the Old Testament. All tithes from the land, whether it be seed from the ground or the fruit from the tree, are the Lord's. They are holy to the Lord. All tithes of herd and flock, every 10th one that passes under the shepherd's staff shall be holy to the Lord. This is a verse that helps us understand that tithing is really giving 10% of what God places in our care to give back to God. Sometimes tithing can seem like a really daunting challenge. You know, the average gift from the typical American household is giving 2% of income for charitable purposes, whether that be religious and or secular. That's what the IRS lets us know in terms of how much of the income is going to charitable giving, about 2% on average. So think about growing from 2% to 10%. You know, in 1 year, that might seem like a really big jump and hard to accomplish. So I wanted to talk a little bit about growth giving. It's first of all figuring out what is your current percentage of giving. What is your income from all the sources of income that are at play in your own life, your own financial picture? Maybe when you do that calculation, you figure out that you're at, say, 4%. And if you'd like to be looking toward how do I make it to a tithe, one way is to practice growth giving, increasing by 1% each year toward that 10% level. So if you find out that you're at a 4% level now, consider making the commitment of giving away 5% of income this year. Going up just that 1% of total income in a given year can be an easier step for accomplishing that move toward the tithe. And I know a number of people who've reached the tithe, and once they start committing to a percentage of giving and giving it off the top as first fruits, they find it's not as hard as they thought it would be because their decisions about the saving and the spending come after they've already made their charitable gifts. So it's easier to get those charitable gifts where they need to be. People say, wow, I reached the tithe. I did it more easily than I thought I would. Some people have told me how they keep growing and giving by 1% every year, moving beyond the tithe. Some people have talked about double tithing. It's a wonderful practice to be generous. I think God takes joy in our generosity, just as God takes joy in giving generously to us. So there's always that possibility for continuing to grow, but think about doing that growth in a stepped basis so that it's easier to do it. But I don't think any significant giving to charities is possible without doing first fruits giving. It's really giving to God that first slice right off the top before other decisions are even made. I love this verse from Proverbs. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruit of all your crops. I heard the story from a former colleague of mine at Luther Seminary saying that his income was so tiny when he was a student in seminary years ago. And his wife was in nursing school or maybe in her first job as a nurse, but their total income was so limited. And one of his professors challenged him to start tithing, and he just could not imagine a way to do it. But the professor said, try it first fruits. Just give away 10% first of all from your income before you decide anything else. And he said, we found a way to do it. Maybe we were sharing an ice cream cone if we went out for an ice cream cone on our date night. So it was inexpensive date night and we shared the ice cream cone, but we found a way to do it. And he said, we've carried that on through our entire lifetime together, decades of married life with much higher incomes as the years went by. But he said, committing to first fruits giving that first slice before deciding anything else, he said that's what made it doable, because after that we could make all our other decisions. Well, I've got some really wonderful stories to share with you today. And first of all, I'd love to tell you about Evie Sonic Halverson. I'm writing a book of profiles of incredibly inspiring women givers. Some of the women are incredibly wealthy. Some have very average means in terms of their income or their savings. But all of the women that I'm writing stories about in my book are women who are astoundingly generous. One of the women I'm writing about is Evie Sonic Halverson. She has passed away since I interviewed her for my book, and I'm so glad I got to talk to her and take a wonderful photo of her before she passed away. But Evie learned to tithe, giving away 10% of income from her first husband, Paul Sonic, who taught for many years both at Augsburg College, now university, and also at Luther Seminary. And Evie herself worked part-time for both institutions. She said she had not grown up with a tradition of tithing, and given that her husband was a college professor, the income wasn't super high, so it was hard for her initially to commit to giving 10%, but she said, I learned to do it. It was the whole first fruits pattern of taking that gift off the top before deciding anything else about what we could afford to do. And she said it became a wonderful faith practice for us. But then Paul died in his early 70s, and she was utterly heartbroken. She talked with me about how deeply she loved her husband. And she talked with her financial planner too, saying, I want to do something significant to honor Paul's legacy. Can you help me think through some possibilities with my financial situation? What could I be doing? And her financial planner recommended to her that she consider buying a life insurance policy on her own life, but that at the end of her life, when the life insurance would be paid out, the two beneficiaries could be Augsburg College and Luther Seminary, where Paul had taught and where Evie herself had worked part-time. Her planner said, this will create a six-figure gift. And the monthly and annual premiums that she was paying for the life insurance were steep. And she said it was hard for me to afford it because she continued her tithing practice and didn't want to stop her regular charitable giving, or regular tithing in order to make this additional purchase of life insurance. And it was several $1,000s a year. But she, for many years, kept paying for the life insurance, knowing that it would one day honor her husband, Paul. And later she married again. She married Bill Halverson, and they had a very happy marriage as well. But she was just delighted that she had set up this gift that would honor her husband one day. And there came a time when her financial planner said, Evie, you have lived so many years now and paid into this life insurance for such a long time. The cash value is almost as much as what you would get if it were paid out when you die. How about if you cash in the policy now and have the fun of giving that gift half to Luther Seminary, half to Augsburg College? So she did, in memory of her first husband. What an astonishing gift. But I tell you this because of the fact that she learned how to be a tither and the joy that she took in giving. And look at how much she was giving beyond a tithe through doing this added life insurance gift that would benefit two of their most favorite charities. In fact, her story inspired her second husband so much that he too set up a legacy gift to honor his first wife. So it's one thing that's kind of fun about generous giving is I think generosity can spread. As people hear the story of what can be done and how wonderful it is, people can get the idea and think, oh, I could do that too. Well, I'd love to tell you now about Lynn Maratska, a dear friend of mine who was a co-worker of mine at Luther Seminary for many, many years. Lynn is also in my book. Lynn talked about how she grew up on the east side of St. Paul. Their family did not have a high income, but they were comfortable. And yet she learned some wonderful financial practices rooted in her faith and in her church life. And so when she married Jim, they committed as a married couple that they would give away off the top. They would practice first fruits giving, and they would give away 5% of their income every year to their congregation. In their case, it's Elam Lutheran Church in Scandia, Minnesota. But she says, in addition to the 5% that we give Elam Lutheran, we also give other charitable gifts, not a designated percentage necessarily each year, but we respond to requests that come in. And she would give very generously to Luther Seminary where she was employed, but also she was employed as executive director at Gammelgarden, which is a Swedish-American immigrant museum located right next to Elam Lutheran Church in Scandia, Minnesota. It's a wonderful museum. If you have a chance to visit us, I know you would enjoy it. But I think Lynn is inspiring because of her commitment early in her marriage and continuing through to this day to first fruits giving. And I'm sure that she's at the tithe or beyond when I think about all the organizations that Lynn and Jim like to support any given year. Well, what are ways that it's possible to be generous right now? One is to give cash. Often people do that from their checkbook. It also could be cash that may be sitting in a savings account. And when a donor gives cash to a charity, the donor gets to claim a charitable tax deduction on income taxes. So it doesn't really cost you as much to give a gift of $100 or $1,000 as that amount that you're giving away because of the fact that you reduce your income taxes that you would otherwise have to pay. So maybe it only costs you $80 to give away that $100 because of the money from income taxes that you're not paying as a result of your gift. But sometimes when people give a gift right now to one or more of their favorite charities, they give away appreciated stock. And I wanted to mention one of the other advantages of giving away appreciated stock beyond cash, because like with a cash gift, you still get to claim a charitable tax deduction, which reduces the income taxes that you have to pay for that year. But if you're giving away stock that has grown in value since you bought it, it has appreciated since you bought it. If you sold that appreciated stock just to use the money for yourself, you would owe capital gains tax on that amount that the stock had grown. But if you give directly to a charity shares of that appreciated stock, you avoid the capital gains altogether. So it's a wonderful added tax savings. So that's why many people, if they have appreciated stock available, will choose to use that as a charitable gift in a given year. And if you want to replenish the stock, use more of the cash that you have on hand to buy more shares of that stock. But you can use the double tax savings by giving the appreciated stock to one or more charities. Just make sure that you're transferring the shares directly, not cashing out and then giving the cash. You want to actually transfer the shares. Another possibility that you can do right now is give stock or cash, but do it in such a way that you're creating an agreement where you are locking into an income stream that comes back to you as the donor. We heard a little bit about that from Brenda when she was presenting last week. This can be a way that it's possible for you to give away maybe a larger gift right now. Rather than simply giving away all the value in the cash or all the value in the appreciated stock, you could say, I'd like to give that asset, but I will feel more comfortable if I'm maintaining an income stream back to me, just to have that income coming in year by year. And there are ways to do that. One way is a charitable gift annuity. They're actually incredibly easy to set up. Many not-for-profits have the wherewithal to set up a charitable gift annuity agreement with you. And often the application is just 1 or 2 pages long. They are very short and easy to set up. And you lock into a fixed rate of income that will remain at that exact same income rate for the rest of your life. It never changes. That's kind of amazing. And there are income tax deductions that can be taken, at least partially. Another amazing thing about charitable gift annuities is that part of the income stream that flows to you, a part of it is tax-free income. It's kind of amazing. As I would talk with donors about this as a way that they might consider giving, sometimes people would say, I can't believe the IRS gives me so many ways to save on taxes through this type of gift. And they would often say to me, this is a win-win. I'm setting up a gift that one day will benefit my favorite charity or charities. And yet I'm creating all these amazing financial advantages for myself. The locked-in income stream, fixed for life, but also tax savings. It's really incredible. And the older you are when you first set this up, the higher the rate of income is that you lock into. Once you lock into it, it never changes. So a charitable trust is another way that you can create an income stream from yourself by giving an asset. Usually people don't set up a charitable trust with less than $100,000. Charitable gift annuities can often be set up with smaller amounts of money. Different not-for-profits have different limits on what that might be, but some will set them up with you for as little as $10,000 or $25,000. So it's perhaps a more affordable way to get started with this way of creating a gift that creates income stream back to you. A charitable trust is actually a legal entity unto itself, and they generally aren't created for less than $100,000, but they have some interesting possibilities. There are ways to set them up where you have a choice of either locking into a fixed rate of income, or you can say, I'd like a variable income stream. If the market is in general going up, I'd like to be getting a higher rate of income and then smaller amount when the market is down. So there are variations in how the trust can be set up. It also can be set up for a specific period of years, like 10 years or 20 years. You also can name yourself as the beneficiary of the income stream. or you could name children or other people that you want to have benefit from the income stream from the charitable trust. So there are possibilities. I mention this just as something that you may want to explore, but in order to do this, you obviously would want to be talking with a professional advisor, perhaps a major gift officer at your favorite charity, perhaps someone at the ELCA Foundation. They help people with both charitable gift annuities and charitable trusts. So it's something out there just to explore. Well, one of the other interesting ways to make a gift right now is to give part or all of a property you own. And there are different ways that you can do this. Again, this is the sort of gift, if you wanted to explore it, it would be important to be working with a professional advisor. You'd probably want to talk to an attorney about it and a gift officer, either at the ELCA Foundation or at a specific charity that you wanted to benefit. But just an example, I knew of a couple who each had taught at a small liberal arts college. And their house was positioned between two different houses that were across the street from the college campus. But each of the houses on either side of their house had already been given to the college. And the woman in this couple spoke to me and said, we believe that the college would be really interested in having our house as well. And we wish we could just give them the whole thing. But it's our largest asset. And we need to be able to pull out when we sell that house. We need to be able to pull out from the sale of that house a significant chunk of the total amount that it's worth. But is there a way that we could give part of it to the college? And I said, yes, it's called a bargain sale. It's where you enter into an agreement with the college where they will buy the property, but at a lower amount than it's been appraised. And the amount that you're, in a sense, giving, the difference between what they will give you as the price that they're paying for the house and the amount that it's really worth, that difference is the charitable gift, because you're letting them have the house at a much lower value, or at some percentage lower value than if it were just sold on the open market. And so it's something to think about, the fact that, of course, the whole house could be given to the college, but if you're in a situation where you need to be able to keep some of the value in a property, know that you can do that and still have a way to give a part of it to charity. Another example of that is what's called a life estate, where you do give the whole property to a charity, but you say, I reserve the right to live in this property or have the use of this property throughout the rest of my lifetime. That could be a farm, could be a house. But again, there are amazing tax advantages with giving the property now. If you know that you want it to go to the charity through your estate plan, one of the advantages of actually giving it sooner while you're still living is that you can take advantage of wonderful tax savings on your income taxes if you give the asset now but yet retain the right to use it. You can see that these have some complexities involved, and that's why it's important to talk with professional advisors about how it would work in your case. But it is interesting to know what your tax savings could be and the impact that you could be having charitably and making an incredible gift like this. Brynhild Roberg is another woman I've profiled in my book. She too has passed away now. But Brinny had the most incredible career. She worked for the U.S. Foreign Service for decades and had the most amazing adventure stories to tell. I remember her talking about in the 1940s during World War II, being told that she was needing to go over to Europe and being told to show up and go on a specific ship. And there was a whole grouping of American ships that would be going across the ocean together because there were known landmines. And so they had to be very careful as they made their way across the ocean. And then, of course, she experienced the bombing that took place in London during World War II. And lots of other adventures as she went to various posts around the world over the years. Brittany was a graduate of St. Olaf College, as had been her parents and her brother. So this was a place that was very meaningful in their family. When she, at a later point in her life, inherited a farm that had been in their family for generations, she just thought to herself, I don't want to be involved with managing this farm. I don't even want to have to hire a manager and oversee a manager who's managing the farm. I just really don't want to deal with it at all. And yet she knew it was a significant asset and she wanted a lifetime income stream from the asset. But this is a case where she gave the farm to St. Olaf College, but I can't remember whether she set up a charitable gift annuity or a charitable trust, but it was one of these types of gifts where she gave the gift now, but then set it up in such a way that she received a lifetime income stream and amazing tax advantages from having given that asset when she did. So I mention it because she was able to give the gift during her lifetime, not just in her estate. It was something she could do in the current day and yet create financial stability for herself through the lifetime income stream that was established in the agreement she set up with St. Olaf College as they received the gift of farmland. It's a wonderful thing to think about. And I thought Brittany was an inspiring example of a woman who followed that path. Well, one of the other things we've heard about in some of the other sessions is this possibility of doing a charitable rollover from an IRA. In order to do this, you must be 70 and a half or older. But you are required at a certain age to start taking a required minimum distribution from your IRA. And yet, if you take that required minimum distribution, or RMD as it's called for short, it becomes income to you and you pay income tax on that. That actually can be fairly expensive, especially if the amount that you're getting in your RMD lifts up your overall income to the point where you're now in a higher tax bracket. It actually can be expensive income to be receiving. But if you're 70 and a half or older, you have this amazing opportunity where you can transfer up to $100,000 a year to charities. It could all go to one, or it could go to multiple charities. But you can contact your IRA custodian or your IRA administrator to ask them to send one or more checks, whether you're giving it to just one charity or multiple charities, have them send the checks out on your behalf. And when they make these transfers for you, it can cover the RMD if the amount that you're transferring is at least as big as what your required minimum distribution was. It could mean that you don't end up having to count that as income for yourself. It counts as your RMD, but you don't have to count it as income because of the fact that it's going to charities. So it's just an amazing way to take advantage of these tax savings that are there for you. But realize this works with IRAs. It does not work with 401ks or 403bs. So again, check with your financial planner, whoever is helping you with your IRA, and just talk through possibilities for how this could work for you. Or talk with your gift planner at the ELCA Foundation or at your favorite charities. Well, I thought I would just, again, give a wrap up here on how to think about stretching in giving of your current giving this year. First of all, make a list of your assets and know their total value. That's really important. And think about things, not just the value of your home or condo, your savings account, the value of any other properties that you might own, like a vacation home or farmland, minus any mortgages that are still held on those. But also think about other assets that you may own, such as valuable paintings or valuable jewelry or valuable cars. Those all have values as well. Talk with your advisors, because as you're thinking about how to stretch in your giving, there's such a wide array of ways that you can make a charitable gift, but some of them really require people who have sophisticated knowledge about how this would work from a tax point of view. It's good to be getting advice. And so you could consult your own financial planner, your accountant, your attorney, or gift officers, as I've mentioned before. And as you visit with people, ask for specific written proposals on how something might work. For example, if you decide that you'd like to explore how a charitable gift annuity would work for you, you can ask for a proposal that shows you, if I set this up with, say, with a gift of $25,000 in cash, and I'm this age right now, what fixed rate of income would I be locking into for the rest of my life? And what's the amount that I could deduct on my income taxes? Oh, and I heard that part of the income I'll be receiving is tax-free. What's the portion that's tax-free, and what's the portion where I just pay regular income tax on that? You can have a proposal that shows you the whole thing on paper, and you can sit down with someone and have them explain to you how that works. Or if you wanted to think about doing a life estate with the home that you live in, where you want to give the home away and take advantage of the tax advantages, but you want to keep living in it throughout the rest of your life, you really need to know specifics on how that would work. How does that kind of agreement work? Would it be comfortable for you to do it? Ask lots and lots of questions. Keep asking questions until the concepts make total sense to you. And finally, have fun living out your faith through giving. Giving is so fun, and God gives us the blessing of being able to give. So that's it for my presentation for you today, but I'd love now for us to have time in small groups. I've prepared some questions for the groups, and we will magically be placed in those groups right within this Zoom call now.
Well, welcome back. Was it fun to see that new element of Zoom technology that allowed us to actually see a slide while we are in a breakout group? That was kind of fun. Yeah. Well, um, I'm I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself at the start. I think probably most of you may know me. I'm Linda Post-Bushkovsky, the Executive Director of Women of the ELCA. And I'm going to talk a little bit now about our campaign. And then we'll have time to hear from a couple of women who are supporting the campaign. And then we'll have time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, um, jot them down and we'll be able to have some conversation about them. So our campaign is for the benefit of the Katarina von Bora Luther Endowment Fund. I think a lot of us know about it. We know about Katie Luther in one or many ways. She's such an inspirational woman. We've written articles about her. We've written a resource about her. Yeah, she's just incredible, right? And I often wonder what she might think about the fact that 540 plus years, or whatever the number is, um, after her life, that this group of North American Lutheran women have created an endowment that bears her name. That's pretty cool. But it was created by our organization on our 10th anniversary. And it was designed to be an endowment. And just so everybody knows what that means, all the gifts that come to an endowment remain untouched in perpetuity. What they do, though, is generate revenue in however the fund is invested. And it is that revenue that can be used for the purposes of the endowment. So in our case, this particular fund was created for three purposes. Or three areas to support programs and resources that do one or more of these things: address leadership development, address global partnerships, or address living theology. And I often just like to footnote that as meaning faith in daily life. What's wonderful about the way it was created is that these are fairly broad terms, aren't they? Leadership development can mean so many different things and can mean one thing in northeastern Iowa, and it can mean a totally different thing in Florida, and again, yet another different thing in Alaska for the communities where you're based. So that's a gift that those who created this endowment gave us some flexibility. And it was always designed to be funding for these programs and resources beyond the annual budget. These are the kind of things that come up, mid-year and you weren't able to budget for them, and there may not be, excess money available sitting there for something like this. But that's what Katie's fund is all about. So now we're about 25 plus years beyond its creation. It was in 97, as I said. And the corpus, that part that will never be touched, exceeds $1 million at this point. And then we have the revenue that's been earned on this that is available for a variety of programs. If you go to welca.org/Katie's Fund, you'll find everything about Katie's Fund, as well as this particular campaign. That's where you can see the other videos from the previous 4 sessions in this series. But we have lots of stories there that tell about how Katie's Fund has enabled ministry to happen over its 25 plus years, all because of the generosity of women like you who have contributed to the endowment. Well, as our churchwide executive board was looking at just a lot of financial realities and also realities about the importance of our organization, they decided that a new approach was needed that could sustain women's ministries into the next century. What a wonderful opportunity to think 100 years ahead. What will be our legacy? And that's really part of what was driving this conversation. So they determined that a campaign was necessary. We weren't going to be able to sustain women's ministries in the next century with only regular offerings and thank offerings, in part because they'd been on a steady decline. So it was going to be a campaign, which was going to be new for us because our organization had never engaged in this kind of activity before. We know that all of you have probably been in one or more campaigns in some way. It might have been a capital campaign for your congregation. It might have been something with an alumni association or a local association or society that you're part of. But so you know about it, but we hadn't applied that concept in our organization. We also wanted this to be a stretch giving opportunity, giving that really reflects each of us. What is our optimum capacity to give? And that makes it different than the $10 that somebody might put in a offering plate when they meet for Bible study. And it's also different than everybody in a given circle deciding, well, I'll contribute $20 and collectively we will contribute, let's say 200 if there's 10 in the circle. We'll contribute $200 to this effort. No, we really wanted people to think about how they can stretch their giving. And Jenny, of course, did such a nice job of giving us some examples in this session today. And then again, the board wanted it to be for an endowment so that it has longevity, that it continues in perpetuity, just like some of the endowments that our organization shepherds today. They were created by women. The oldest one that Women of the ELCA holds right now is from 1904. And I often stop to think about those women and wonder if they could imagine that the money they gave back then is still supporting ministry, in many of these, ministry around the globe, more than 100 years later. It's quite amazing and it's exciting. And this gives our generations an opportunity to make that kind of gift. Well, the campaign was approved by the Churchwide Executive Board following a feasibility study, and we launched it in June of last year. And here are just a couple of the numbers for you to look at and ponder right now. We've had about 300 individuals who've made over 300 gifts. It's wonderful to see repeated gifts from people. Some of that came just now, September, when we were at the triennial gathering, because the offering, a portion of the offering at the final worship was designated for this campaign, but about 300 individuals. And about 237 groups have made gifts, ranging from 10 at the one end to 10,000 at the other end. What's interesting about that is the campaign has never asked a group yet to make a gift. But that kind of group giving from circles, from congregational units, even from synodical organizations, that's so ingrained in who we are as women of the ELCA that even though they were not asked, they've already given. So that goes back to that piece about how we're trying to create a seismic change in that we're trying to invite individuals to make these stretch gifts. I mean, we're happy to receive money from the units. Don't get me wrong. That's wonderful that they've contributed, but it is a different approach. So it's a kind of creating a cultural change in our organization. And right now, we're about 1/3 of the way to that $1 million goal. We did something else that was new for us. This year, we had a Mother's Day challenge with a generous gift from Barbara Thistle. Many of you know Barbara. And the goal, of course, was she made a gift of $25,000, and the goal was to match that. We didn't quite get there. We had gifts during that period, a little bit over a month, of 11,309. But overall, the challenge netted the endowment $36,309. So again, that was something new, and you never know, we may have another challenge up our sleeves too as we continue along with the campaign. The campaign has been more than just a request for finances to support the endowment. We've done other things with it. A $1,000 seed grant was given to each of the 64 synodical organizations. And the reports are coming back in now. These are a couple of examples of what the SWOs have done with that $1,000 seed grant. Retreats have been held, some for clergy women. Um, there have been leadership training, and it's happened in a variety of different ways, both led by the SWO, also led by outside agencies that were targeted on a specific topic like advocacy, where women from a synodical organization learned how to be better advocates as Christian women. One SWO purchased books for everybody who came to their convention as they are trying to become better allies for the LGBTQIA community. And they thought one of the ways to accomplish that was for everybody to read the same book and consider it. We're going to be adding all these stories to our webpage. So it'll be fun for you to come back regularly and see what's new. I just got a new one this week, just the end of the week. So it's exciting to see. And in theory, everything should be completed by the end of this year. We know a couple of SWOs are going to have their plans in place, but the actual activity won't happen until sometime in the first half of 24. But it's a wonderful thing to see how Katie's Fund is enabling so many creative and different ministries to happen. In addition, of course, for this whole campaign, we've had this God's Gift of Money series so that all of us can become better educated about our finances and ways in which to live out our faith through our finances. So I'd like you to consider this as my personal invitation to you and to every other participant in Women of the ELCA to make a stretch gift to 2122 Growing Katie's Fund for the next 100 years. It could be an outright gift right now in one or more of the ways that Jenny described today. It could be a form of a planned gift or an estate gift, as you've learned in previous sessions. Now you have the vocabulary and you know of the possibilities, and now you can feel empowered to sit down and talk with a financial planner and figure out how you could achieve your goals. And we really invite you to talk to other people about this as well. Um, maybe you have a brother or an uncle or someone, a guy who would love to honor the mom or the grandma who was important in their own faith development. Maybe it's a widower who would like to make a gift in memory of his wife. We have one that has come in like that. But you're best situated to talk with other people. And I really want to invite you to consider that and figure out ways that you can do it. We are certainly, I'm happy to talk with you about any of these things. We have a leadership team of women from across the organization who are supporting this whole effort as well. They can speak with you and we can, offer suggestions if in fact you need any suggestions on ways to go forward. And again, go to welca.org/Katie's Fund because there is lots of information that you can use to be empowered in this whole process too. So that is my portion of the program right now. What I'm excited to do is to introduce two different women who are going to share their own enthusiasm and commitment to both Women of the ELCA and the campaign in a few words. So first we're going to hear from Lisa Plurine, former Churchwide Executive Board President from Upham, North Dakota.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Plorine, and I am a member of the leadership team 2122 Growing Katie's Fund for the next 100 years. And as you might know, this is a $1 million campaign that's designed to support this organization into the next 100 years of mission and ministry. And we're hoping that by expanding Katie's Fund by $1 million through this campaign, women of the ELCA will continue to multiply and reach and impact women's leadership and ministry throughout the church. Through its ministry fund, Katie's Fund has enabled women to attend advocacy and immersion events, to educating young people about human trafficking at the ELCA Youth Gathering back in 2018. And that's where I came in. I've personally benefited from Katie's Fund back in 2018 as a newly elected churchwide president. I had the privilege of attending the ELCA Youth Gathering in Houston. Katie's Fund supported a human trafficking booth that allowed teens and adult leaders to come through and learn about sex trafficking. Those who visited our booth learned that sex trafficking affects many youth, no matter their race or education, the background that they come from, or even where they live. In this particular exhibit space, the women of the ELCA demonstrated that sex trafficking could affect youth of all cultures and backgrounds. It was really neat because in our area, those who came through assembled hygiene kits for local agencies caring for youth that had been affected by sexual abuse or trafficking. It was so amazing to stand back and watch gathering participants not only pack hygiene kits, but also to watch and listen as they wrote notes of encouragement and slipped those inside each bag. You are loved. You matter. I'm praying for you. Those were just some of the many messages that were handwritten and placed inside each hygiene bag. Another wonderful experience for me was in 2019 when I attended and participated in the Women's Theological Conference of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Tanzania. This was a conference for women clergy and lay leaders. And to say that this event changed my life is an understatement. And I am so grateful to have had that opportunity to enhance my leadership skills and to make those wonderful global connections. Our purpose statement tells us that we are the church, we are the women of the ELCA, and we are here to promote healing and wholeness in the church, the society, and the world. And this is where you come in. I would like to invite each of you to consider making a gift to this important campaign. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. You can give a one-time gift, a monthly gift, or do like I did. I pledged a certain dollar amount to be paid over a 3-year period of time. I can honestly say that I would not be here in front of you talking to you today if it had not been for the generosity of the women of the ELCA, even from my home Turtle Mountain cluster in western North Dakota. My life has been impacted so much to the point that I've recently become a synodically authorized minister serving a 3-point parish. I know in my heart of hearts that this would not have happened had I not said yes to being a part of this amazing group. If you have little girls in your family, granddaughters, nieces, please think of that generation and what could be available to them as they grow through their faith. Please give to Katie's Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We're glad to have heard your message. And now we're going to hear from our current churchwide president, Myrna Wells Euland, just elected in September.
Hello, everyone. I bring you greetings from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you to everyone who has taken this opportunity to learn more about stewarding God's gift of money. Our speakers have represented a wide variety of knowledge and skills, and I, for one, am very grateful these women have been willing to share their expertise with all of us. Just 18 months ago, the women of the ELCA announced the birth of the first campaign of its kind in our history, the 21-22 Growing Katie's Fund for the Next 100 Years campaign. This campaign is planning to raise $1 million for the Katarina von Bora Luther Endowment Fund. I was invited to join the initial leadership team for the campaign, and I knew that my personal gift to the campaign would help the campaign not only achieve its goal, but beyond that, it would demonstrate support for this kind of initiative. And I thought back to the first time that I had made a stretch gift to a major campaign. At that time, I served as the congregational president of what was then a rather large congregation back in Minnesota. We initiated a capital campaign to help the church begin a preschool program, including constructing a new building. Leaders of the congregation were asked to support the capital campaign and make a sacrificial gift, either one time or over a period of 3 years. Being it was a church, the term sacrificial gift was defined as a gift over and above our regular offering. Today, you might hear the term stretch gift. Essentially, it means the same thing as a sacrificial gift. After prayerful consideration, my husband and I made a 3-year pledge, and I was even asked to make that pledge public to the congregation to show our support for the campaign. Our pledge was small by many giving standards, but for us, it was a significant sacrificial gift. It stretched us financially, and God provided. The preschool was licensed in 2000, and it continues to serve the community today. My next opportunity to consider another stretch or sacrificial gift came 3 years ago when my bishop called and asked if I'd chair a 3-year campaign, with this time within our synod. The campaign was called Growing Generosity, and the goal was to raise $500,000. I need to confess that I am not a fundraiser, nor do I have training or experience in what might be called development work. But when your bishop asks you to take a leadership role and you believe the objective of the campaign is possible, you have to trust the Holy Spirit for what will be needed. After accepting her offer, I again felt that I was being called to consider a gift that would demonstrate support for this campaign. And this time I was in a position to complete my pledge over 18 months instead of 3 years. This particular campaign exceeded its initial goal in the first year. So then the bishop challenges us to raise another $250,000, again within that same initial 3-year period. And again, God provided. The stretch goal was reached within the 3 years, providing resources to plant seeds for a new generation of ministry, this time within our synod. And this brings me to our 21-22 Growing Katie's Fund for the next 100 Years campaign. In 2022, on the leadership team and having significant leadership experience in women of the ELCA over the last dozen or so years, I made another 3-year stretch pledge to this campaign. I believe we grow in faith when we stretch ourselves financially, especially when the campaign is an initiative from within our religious affiliation. And as we support that initiative, it allows us to support one another in their callings. The Katie's Fund Endowment allows us to fund special initiatives or unexpected ministry opportunities beyond what we can do with our annual operating budget. Through this 21-22 initiative, we are helping support mission and ministry into the next 100 years. We're helping support the vision of a future where women lead the church in new and innovative ways, and we're leaving a legacy to equip future leaders. Whether your gift to this campaign is a sacrificial gift, a stretch gift, a one-time gift, a gift you add to your budget on a regular basis, a gift of appreciated stock, or a gift from your estate, know that you are helping women of the ELCA multiply the reach and impact of women's leadership and ministry in the church. Our purpose statement says we are empowered by the Holy Spirit. If you've already made your gift to this campaign, we thank you. And if you're still thinking about a decision to participate, I encourage you to pray about that. And then trust the outcome of your decision to the Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Go ahead, Jenny.
We have just a few minutes here for a question or two, and I thought of one right away. Linda, as people are inspired to give a gift to Katie's Fund, how do they find the specific info on where to send it? If we go to welca.org/Katie's Fund, does that page have a pledge card or something that people could print off and send in?
Yeah, we have a variety of information on that page. And you know what I'll do? I'll just share my screen for a moment and then folks can see what's there. So this is Women of the ELCA/Katie's Fund or welca.org. It'll get you there as well. If you simply just want to send a check with not much fanfare, you can follow the information right here on the right and send in your check. You can write Katie's Fund in the memo line, and it goes to the gift processing center that's in Merrifield, Virginia, and it will be credited to the campaign. Here's where we have information about our series that we've just been participating in and the previous 4 recordings. But if you get down to about halfway down the page, you can download an intention form right here by clicking on that, and you'll see the form that you can complete and send in, and you would send that completed form into our churchwide office in Chicago.
Well, and I see it's interesting there. I'm looking in the green box on that form that you just showed us, Linda, because one of my next questions was, what if people want to send in appreciated stock? And I see partway down that green form, there's a place
Mhm.
where we can check if we want to send in stocks, bonds, or an IRA contribution. And it says staff will contact you regarding the transfer of
Mhm.
appreciated stock, because people will need a little bit of information about how to arrange for the transfer of that stock. And it sounds like if you send in this commitment form, staff will be in touch with you. So that answers
Mhm.
my question. And it looks like people, what's the length of period over which people could pledge? Like if people wanted to make a pledge right now, could they pledge over a 2 to 3 year period?
Yes, and that's what most of the pledges we've received have been for a mostly a 3-year period, but we do have flexibility. It can extend to 5 years if necessary, if that would meet the donor's needs.
Well, that's wonderful to know. And I guess my last question for you, Linda, is if people want to do something through their estate plan or perhaps set up a charitable gift annuity where the gift would be used later, are you counting those gifts also toward the campaign?
You bet, we sure are. When we know about them. Not always does the churchwide organization learn that, but certainly in the context of this campaign, we hope that folks would let us know that we are tracking those. And we have one already that we've received in that way.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Well, with that, I'll just say a few parting words. It's been such a pleasure to be part of this series. It's exciting for me to hear that Women of the ELCA is thinking big about inviting women to stretch in their giving for a cause that matters. It's an exciting moment in the life of Women of the ELCA. I'm really noting that this is the first ever campaign in the life of women of the ELCA. I find it kind of astonishing because so many organizations and certainly our congregations conduct a series of campaigns over the years. And so I think it's a wonderful time now that Women of the ELCA is starting to invite women to think about those bigger stretch gifts rather than simply the thank offering gifts, which have been so wonderful. And we hope, of course, that those continue as they always have. And yet this is a wonderful moment for doing something above and beyond that. The goal is $1 million. And it sounds like we're about a third of the way there so far, based on all the generosity that's been pouring forth so far. So today you're invited, as you've heard, to consider a stretch gift. And another phrase that I think of regarding stretch gifts or sacrificial gifts is a stop and think gift. It's not necessarily a simple and easy thing to just whip out the checkbook and write a quick check. This is a gift that takes some thinking about what are the other assets that God has placed in our care? And what is a way that I might perhaps grow in my giving? It may be a decision that involves talking with some other advisors or planners in order to come out with the final decision about what's the best way, what's the way that fits my financial situation best, that also helps me grow in my giving and grow in my support of Women of the ELCA and Katie's Fund. So we invite you to pray about it. We invite you to bring in those advisors to help you explore the options, the tax advantages, finding a way that fits you and that brings you joy. Thank you for your generosity. And thanks too for being a part of the session today and for being a part of this whole 5-part series. It's been focused on God's gift of money. I hope this series opened your eyes to ways to give charitable gifts that may be larger than you had ever thought possible. Know that the recordings of this webinar series will live on through the Women of the ELCA page on YouTube. You can find these sessions on YouTube either to review material that you'd like to hear again, or to share these sessions with women you know who would benefit from hearing the information we've presented. God be with you as you go about your life of stewarding God's abundance. Bye.